is not possible for the British Prime Minister now to deploy the Navy and do the things that you need to do in order to actually stop the boats. The courts will declare it unlawful because of the Human Rights Act. So what you have to do is you have to repeal the Human Rights Act, you have to state that you're withdrawing from the jurisdiction of the Strasbourg court, and you then deploy the Navy and you stop the boats. And you say, nobody is landing from any of these boats. Everybody from these boats that we pick up will get dropped on an island somewhere. No one will be coming to mainland Britain of any kind. The boats will be destroyed, and the people organising the boats are going to be put on a list for UK Special Forces to kill or capture, the way that we do with various terrorist organisations. As soon as you announce that that is your policy and take serious steps to do it, the boats stop straight away, because the people doing this are not ideological terrorists, right, who want to die and get into and fight about this. They're there to make money. So as soon as they realise, oh, an island nation is actually just going to stop these stupid boats, they're obviously going to send the people somewhere else.
In the face of persistent migrant boat crossings across the English Channel, pressure is mounting on the British government to take a dramatically tougher stance. A new wave of hardline policy proposals has entered the national debate, rallying around the controversial idea of deploying the Royal Navy to intercept, deter, and ultimately halt migrant vessels attempting to reach British shores. The core of the proposed approach is militarized. Navy vessels would be stationed in the Channel, tasked with the interception of any and all boats carrying migrants. Those intercepted would not be taken to British soil, but instead transported to a secure offshore holding facility on a remote island away from mainland Britain. The policy would also target the organizers of these crossings, with some suggesting that British Special Forces could be authorized to carry out operations aimed at dismantling trafficking networks at the source. The logic of deterrence is central to the pitch. Advocates say that a credible threat of interception, coupled with the knowledge that migrants will not reach the UK mainland, will dry up the flow of boats altogether. The current system rewards criminality, one senior Tory backbencher said on condition of anonymity. People know they'll be processed here. That must end. We need the fear of failure to be greater than the hope of arrival. Former Supreme Court Justice Lord Sumption cautioned that any attempt to sidestep international law would likely lead to a prolonged constitutional battle and damage the UK's credibility on the world stage. You cannot simply declare war on asylum seekers, he said. There is a line between security and cruelty, and Britain would be crossing it. For now, the Prime Minister has remained non-committal. While he has made curbing illegal immigration a central part of his platform, Starmer has so far resisted calls to rip up Britain's human rights framework or greenlight direct military interdiction. But with elections looming and political pressure mounting from his right flank, the calculus may soon change. What Britain decides in the coming months may redefine not just its immigration system, but the character of the nation itself. Will it choose the path of deterrence through force, or continue wrestling with the complexities of migration through a legalistic and humanitarian lens? One thing is certain, the boats may be small, but the questions they raised are anything but.
An extraordinary poll which is featured in the Telegraph by Ipsos. Now, there was a magic number that was being bandied around Reform, the number that they needed to achieve in order to try and win a majority at the next general election. My impression was that magic number was 31.5% of the vote.
Yeah.
What are Ipsos saying Reform is polling at?
34%. So it's a pretty extraordinary poll for Reform. It's their best poll so far. And if we sort of translate it over to seats, then they'd be winning an outright majority. There's definitely a health warning with it. It's not an MRP poll. It's not done on a constituency by constituency basis. So it is hard to directly transfer that over to constituencies and to a general election. However, the general shape of it is pretty extraordinary. We've got Reform on 34%, Labour down at 25%, and the Tories down at 15%.
15%?
Which is pretty appalling. When you transfer it over to seats, again, health warning, but the Tories will be getting less than 10 seats. Which is pretty shameful.
Really. I mean, I shall be asking Dame Priti Patel about it a little later, but it doesn't make for great reading, except for Nigel Farage. And
Yeah.
what's the headline of the Telegraph there?
Farage on course to be Prime Minister after next election.
Music to his ears,
yeah,
I'm
he'll
sure.
be
I mean, we've
loving
got a long way to go, though. It should be
Yeah.
said. I mean, because of the news cycle, everybody's talking about elections every 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Actually, this is a marathon, not a sprint. But
Yeah.
certainly inside Reform HQ. The other thing that's interesting, this polling would have taken place after the Zia Youssef incident.
Yeah.
So clearly, that's not really had that much cut through. Was it a bit of a Westminster bubble story, do you think?
I mean, maybe. And also, even of that aside, Nigel's policies were unveiled before this as well. And there was a lot of criticism about funding and how he was going to pay for it. And I think some Westminster commentators sort of thought that maybe this could put people off reform.
Actually, that's a really good point. So this poll has taken place after he suggested that he would, like Labour or some Labour backbenchers, want to scrap the two-child benefit cap. And some people said, why are you doing that? Because parking his tanks on Labour's lawns. But OK, so the public seems to quite like that policy.
I think it just seems to have sort of gone over everyone's heads in the sense of people actually just want strong policies rather than people being too worried about how much it's going to cost, which is quite telling.
In a political development few in Westminster saw coming, a bombshell poll has sent shockwaves through the establishment by projecting that Reform UK, once dismissed as a fringe protest movement, could an outright majority in the next general election. The data, released earlier this week and swiftly picked up across media outlets, shows Reform UK not merely siphoning off disgruntled Conservative voters, but leapfrogging both Labour and the Tories in seat projections. According to the model, Nigel Farage's insurgent party would command a House of Commons majority, rewriting the post-Brexit political landscape in a way that would have been unthinkable even 6 months ago. Millie Cook, political correspondent at The Independents, described the findings as extraordinary, noting that the general shape of the results points to something deeper than a protest vote. This isn't just a mid-cycle tantrum from the electorate, Cook said during an interview. It suggests a structural collapse of trust in both major parties. Reform isn't just capitalizing on anger, it's occupying a vacuum. While the polling model in question has not been universally accepted as gospel, its implications have rattled strategists on both sides of the aisle. For the Conservatives, it represents a full-scale hemorrhaging of the party's traditional right-wing base, much of it still embittered over Rishi Sunak's perceived failure to deliver a post-Brexit dividend. For Labour, the data signals a potential ceiling on their support, especially among voters who feel culturally alienated by what they perceive as metropolitan elitism. Nigel Farage, who recently returned to frontline politics, wasted no time capitalizing on the polling news. "This is the beginning of a political revolution," he declared during a speech in Clacton, his newly announced battleground constituency. "We are the only party speaking for the people who have been abandoned, ignored, and lied to by both Labour and the Tories. Reform is no longer just a movement. It's a government in waiting." Labour officials are watching closely, particularly with an eye on working-class voters in red wall constituencies. Sir Keir Starmer has thus far avoided taking the bait from Farage, but Labour insiders privately concede that ignoring reform could prove dangerous. "There's a silent culture war being fought across the country," one strategist admitted. "And if we're not careful, we'll lose it without ever realizing we were in it." Yet not everyone is convinced the numbers will hold. Election models rely heavily on current opinion polling, which can shift dramatically during a campaign. The UK's first past, the post system also means that turning national popularity into seats is notoriously difficult for insurgent parties. Many political veterans recall the hype around the Liberal Democrats in 2010 or UKIP in 2015, neither of which translated into serious power.